Welcome back to Fox Recaps. Today, I'm going to explain the movie Equilibrium, released in the year 2003. The movie opens up in a dystopian future city-state of Libria. With some scenes of destruction, the narrator mentions how a horrific Third World War that broke out in the early years of the 21st century affected human civilization. The narrator also mentions that, after the war, world leaders started investigations to create a new, peaceful civilization out of concern that the human species cannot possibly survive a Fourth World War. After a few years, the leaders concluded that the main root of destruction is human emotions, and that they should be controlled. Following this, in Libria, a Tetragrammaton Council bans all the drugs and other materials that can possibly evoke human emotions. Even day-to-day necessities like arts, music, and literature are banned. Additionally, all residents of Libria are compelled to get recurring injections, or intervals, of a liquid medicine called prosium that is acquired from the distribution facilities called Equilibrium. This medicine causes people to lose their emotions and become cold-hearted animals. In the next scene, we get to know that the Tetragrammaton Council of Libria is commanded by a secretive leader known as the Father. Although the Father seldom communicates with anybody outside of the governing council, he has successfully established himself as a strong personality, commanding his visions through big screens that are present all over the city. The Tetragrammaton Council employs its police state infrastructure to impose uniformity and conformity, and aims to provide every Librian a similar life. On the other hand, the Grammaton clerics, who are skilled in the lethal martial art of gun kata, which trains practitioners to anticipate the moves of opponents during firearm combat, are at the top of the Librian law enforcement. The clerics are responsible for tracking down and destroying i8m materials, as well as pursuing, catching, and, if necessary, killing sense offenders, or those who are guilty of having emotions. The scene then shifts to 2072, where Viviana Preston, the wife of high-ranking cleric John Preston, is hanged as a sense offender, leaving John to raise their two children alone. Meanwhile, the police get information about a group of resistant fighters hiding in a building with some extremely valuable EC-10, aka emotional contents. When the police officers fail to stop the group, Preston is called there to lead the attack. As soon as he reaches there, Preston enters a dark room with resistant fighters inside, holding two guns in his hands. For a while, he calculates the number of resistant fighters and suddenly starts shooting at them with great speed and accuracy. Within seconds, he successfully kills all of them without showing any emotions in his face. Following the raid, the police find a real painting of the Mona Lisa under the wooden floor. To everyone's surprise, Preston orders his men to burn the painting. After the successful raid, Preston discovers that his colleague, Errol Partridge, has secretly seized a copy of Yeats's poetry. He inquires as to why he did so, and Errol replies that he'll submit it himself, as he does not trust anyone. Later, after feeling skeptical about Errol, Preston visits the evidence department and gets to know that Errol has not submitted any evidence. He then pursues Errol to a collapsed cathedral. There, Errol expresses his emotions and persuades Preston into helping him take his own life. When Errol tries to reach for his gun, Preston shoots him right in the head and kills him instantly. The next day, when Preston tries to take a regular dose of prosium, it slips from his hands and breaks. He then skips the dose and goes straight to work. At the office, Preston is assigned a career-conscious cleric, Brant, as his new partner. Together, the two go on their first mission of interrogating a sense offender, Mary O'Brien. After they reach her, Preston begins interrogating the offender. However, his emotional distress starts worsening due to him skipping the prosium shots. A while later, he falls for Mary's body scent, and as a result, stops Brent from killing her. This confuses Brant, but he decides to oblige with his senior. Later, while Preston interrogates Mary in the police station, she refuses to tell anything about her associates. Furthermore, she despises Preston for living an emotionless life and compares his life with a moving clock, which is just passing time. The following morning, Preston is heavily disturbed by the newly arising emotions. He peels the cover of his bathroom window and admires the beauty of the rising sun. Feeling weird about the unknown emotions, Preston rushes towards his room to take a shot of Prosium, but somehow stops himself from doing so. He rather hides the shots behind the mirror of his bathroom so that no one can ever find them. During Preston's next mission with Brandt to eliminate the sense offenders, he exhibits emotional behavior when he stops his crew from killing a dog and stresses that he would like to hand it over to the medical team for its treatment. By this point, Preston has ceased using Prosium and is forced to maintain his emotionless and robotic demeanor in front of his kids and the increasingly wary Brandt. In the course of the movie, Preston's actions resemble that of Errol's, to the point where he steals a book from among the evidence and makes the same excuse as Errol. Disturbed by the continuous killing of the sense offenders, Preston visits the vice counselor DuPont and mentions that the sense offenders should be interrogated rather than eliminated. In reply, DuPont tells him that they're just following the father's orders and no one is permitted to go against them. In the following scene, Preston goes back to the Nethers to release the dog he rescued before. He opens the trunk and tries to release the puppy, but it refuses to go away. After this, Preston decides to take it home and puts the dog back in his trunk. Suddenly, a group of police officers arrive there and take away his keys to check his car's trunk. Preston tells the officers that there's nothing inside it, but the men are adamant on opening the trunk. Just then, they recognize Preston as one of the high-ranking clerics and return his keys. Unfortunately, when the officers are about to return, they hear the dog barking from inside the trunk. They then force Preston to open the trunk, and when they find a dog inside, they ask Preston to get on his knees and surrender. To their surprise, rather than surrendering, Preston snatches their weapons and shoots at each one of them within a span of seconds. In the next scene, Brandt approaches Preston and asks him to get ready for another raid in the Nethers. Following this, the duo goes for their raid, and there, Preston finds a group of rebels protesting against the father. As Preston stopped taking Prosium, he starts to feel pity for the rebels and decides not to kill them. He secretly tries to take them to a safer location to hide, but gets discovered by the police officers. Left with no options, he takes out his gun and kills everyone before they can harm the offenders. After the fight, Preston is taken aback to find the rebels captured by Brandt and lined up for execution. Preston arrives there and tries to stop Brandt from killing the rebels, and mentions that they should be properly interrogated. However, Brandt doesn't listen to him and replies that they have to follow the father's orders. He even provides Preston with his pistol, assuming that he might be low on ammo, but Preston returns it without thinking twice. After this, Preston tries his best to put on a straight face and walks away when the rebels get executed by Brandt and the officers. The next day, DuPont summons Preston to his office and inquires about the incident that happened the previous night. Preston lies to DuPont, telling him that he just wants to win the trust of the underground rebel group, aka Resistance, and uproot them completely. After the meeting with DuPont, a disturbed Preston starts searching inside Errol's belongings. Soon, he finds a thin metal case with several pictures inside. Surprisingly, Preston finds a picture of a man named Jurgen, whom Errol used to meet regularly. In the next scene, Preston meets with Jurgen at an abandoned school building and after a short conversation, gets to know that Jurgen and his group are planning to kill the father and also destroy the equilibrium. Jurgen also takes a polygraph test of Preston where his seismic graphs change as soon as he hears the name Mary. This convinces Jurgen that Preston is not taking his dose of Prosium and has a sense of feelings. After this, Preston informs Jurgen that killing the father will not be an easy task, as he is under high security and hasn't met anyone face-to-face in years. However, Jurgen replies that Preston is the only one who can accomplish the mission. Following this, he also reveals to Preston that while he attempts to kill the father, he and his resistance group will visit the factories of Prosium and destroy various parts of it to seize the flow of Prosium and hopefully bring down the Tetragrammaton Council. Back to his office, Preston looks at the live footage of Mary being executed. Worried, he rushes towards the execution chamber and tries to stop the execution, but fails as the guards mention that the process has already started. After this, Preston begins to sob uncontrollably as he witnesses Mary O'Brien being executed in Libria's furnaces. While Preston is crying, Brandt approaches him and takes him into custody. Brandt then brings Preston to DuPont's office and accuses him of being attracted to a female sense offender and killing the police officers in the Nethers. To Brandt's surprise, Preston deceives DuPont into thinking that Brandt is the culprit. Out of suspicion, when DuPont checks the weapon used to kill the officers in the Nethers, it turns out to be Brandt's revolver. DuPont then orders his men to arrest Brandt and take him to the execution chamber. After this, DuPont tells Preston that his house has to be checked as per the law. Preston shows no objection to getting his house checked, but makes a request with DuPont to let him meet the father. However, the latter mentions that the father meets no one. Next, Preston can be seen running towards his house to destroy the doses of Prosium before the police officers find it. He quickly enters the bathroom of his house and is taken aback after not finding the shots there. Just then, his son Bobby enters the bathroom and shows him the doses of Prosium and asks him to hide it in a proper place for next time. Furthermore, Bobby also mentions that he and his sister have not been taking Prosium after the death of their mother. In the following scene, Preston visits Jurgen and makes a plan to kill the father and bring the council down. As a part of the big plan with the underground resistance, Preston calls the council and informs them that he's successfully found the location of the resistance groups. After the police officers successfully arrest the resistance members, including Jurgen, Preston succeeds in convincing DuPont to give him access to Father. Later, Preston is addressed by the father through a telescreen, who reveals that he was aware of Preston's sense offense and that Brandt's arrest was staged to give Preston a false sense of security and give him the impression that his assassination plan can proceed. Preston is surprised to see that the father knows everything about him despite the meeting being their first. Here, it's revealed that the vice consul, DuPont, is the current father, and the real one has already passed away many years prior. After knowing that he's been used by the council, Preston gets enraged and starts shooting at the officers present inside the room, killing everyone. He also destroys the screen and warns DuPont that he's coming after him. In the next scene, Preston goes on a rampage and kills every officer that comes in his way. Soon, he finds Brandt and DuPont sitting inside DuPont's room. Preston then engages in a duel with Brandt, but the latter is no match for Preston. Just after a few seconds, he is killed. Seeing this, DuPont reaches for his gun, and Preston also manages to pick a gun from the floor. The two then engage in a gunfight where Preston eventually prevails and kills DuPont. He then follows up by destroying the father's holographic projector, as well as the propaganda devices that broadcast the father's messages all over Libria. Following this, the underground group sets off their explosives, and after the Tetragrammaton Council realizes that they're in trouble, they free the resistance group captives. The movie ends with a riot that heralds the fall of the Librian administration and the end of tyrannical rulers. That was all from the video. I hope you liked it. Subscribe for more content like this and hit the like button to help us out. Also, leave a comment if you want us to recap your favorite movie. Until next time, take care.